Words matter, Nick.
Okay, just words that matter is us on the last episode kind of bashing the Chiefs because we're talking about how they had no heart when they were down in the Super Bowl, and we were looking for some Tom Brady-esque type hype and motivation that we saw in the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl, and we were left with nothing. So we bashed on the Chiefs. But then, Scott, this video was floating around on X the last couple days. Actually, there were some motivational words coming from some of these Chiefs while they were down.
Patriots did it, coach. We can do this. The Patriots did 27-3. We can do this. Come on, dog. Come on, man. We all we got, man. Let's go. Come on.
Get it, baby. Let's go put it on the board.
You would expect more from guys who have been there as frequently as they have. You would expect more to realize that this is a moment in time where you are being faced with such great adversity. This is like where you become. This is where you become the man you're supposed to be, right? And it just didn't seem like there was that same sort of energy or vibe there as we've been saying. So a missed opportunity, probably the biggest missed opportunity I think these guys will ever have in their life, and they know it. Like, in the aftermath of this, and even during it, they were just like, man, we did not show up in any regard.
Dude, that's the thing. I mean, like, we've been in football games, granted not the Super Bowl, but in football games, you're down, and like, football's such a momentum sports, and where your vibe is down and terrible, and things are not going your way. But what makes it even worse is just not fighting back, man, and not having a real fire to get out of that situation. And so, yeah, dude, I think especially from like Mahomes and Kelce, at least in these clips, we have to like give them the benefit of the doubt of maybe there's other clips or maybe there's other moments where they actually were really igniting their teammates and having true authentic motivation. But from what we're seeing in that, and I don't even know, do you know who put that out? Did the Chiefs put that out or did the NFL put that out?
Well, this is via NFL Films, but they obviously capture everything that occurs on the sideline for every game. So they got insane amounts of footage and everything like that. But yeah, this feels like a little bit of a selective editing a la 60 Minutes, like shout out. So this could be one of those moments. So yes. Give the devil his due. There were probably moments where leaders actually did step up and try and say something, but clearly it wasn't a strong enough sort of motivational moment for them to put it out there or to change the the trajectory of the game.
Yeah, I mean, or also maybe the other possibility is those were the best clips that they could have pulled.
Yeah.
And that would be kind of worst case scenario. So,
shout out to NFL Films. Just sometimes they just crush it, right? They had that I think it was the Saquon Barkley's run in the snow that was just so beautiful and picturesque. And then at the same time, so they have those that they put out there that just take things to the next level, and then they have the ones that they put out there that are just absolutely terrible looks for players. Like don't do that. Don't do that to those guys.
Well, dude, that's the thing. Like, coming from the perspective of a kind of a documentary filmmaker who's made something about football, you've gotta clarify where your allegiance is to. Is your allegiance to the final product for the viewer to watch, or is it to the subject? Do you want to make sure that they're always looking their best, or do you want to make the most entertaining product? So who knows? But what you just said there about beautiful and cinematic Saquon's run, I want to come back to that. Remind me that when we're talking about college football in a little bit, because we're going to talk about the draft, I do want to talk about kind of the beauty and cinema of different moments and types of football play. So let's talk about that a little bit later. But we have to go into this big story right now. Rumors going about. Well, obviously, last episode we touched, New York Giants are out on Aaron Rodgers. And now there are rumors floating around that perhaps another New York team, the Giants, might be going after Matthew Stafford.
Ooh.
So for those just listening, we've got a graphic up right here. NFL trade rumors. Rams reportedly want the Giants' first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft for Matthew Stafford. That's kind of ambitious. I think they have the third overall pick. So that would be a pretty hefty trade right there. Scott, thoughts on this, especially after Cooper Kupp announced that he's going to get shipped out?
Well, I think that might be the impetus for a lot of this too. Is look, it's no secret that Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford were like thick as thieves, two peas in a pod, just literally on a pod together.
Like us, dude.
Yeah, like us. Yeah, exactly. And for them to ship out the the top receiver, at least in Stafford's mind, and Puka being right there as 1B, if not 1A. Like this makes sense, and there's some credence to the rumors as to why maybe Stafford would have been rubbed the wrong way or unhappy with decisions that are being made. I know that his wife is a little chirpier than most on the interwebs.
Yeah.
For better or for worse for him. But yeah, I think it was Colin Cowherd that was out here talking about this rumor being or having some legs, and saying that some of the executives are just tired of the back and forth abrasive nature of his wife, and the conversation that's always circling, hey, like, will they, won't they move off of Stafford this year? Because I think this has been a recurring conversation over the past 2 seasons as to whether or not they'll keep him, which blows my mind because all he does is perform for them every year.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there are other elements of the organization that are falling by the wayside that are not letting them succeed to the level that they're supposed to or should. So I don't know. Moving on from Matt Stafford would be a little crazy, I think, in the minds of Rams fans.
Sean McVay, man, we said it. Like,
that's true. You did, yeah.
Like, I know people back then especially did not really respect Jared Goff, but he got to a Super Bowl with the Rams with Sean McVay. And even so, Sean McVay moved off Jared Goff, obviously, to go for this Matt Stafford move right here. And so he has shown that he is willing to move off quarterbacks that have had success, like kind of recently, if he feels like it's not the right fit anymore, or it's not going to work out in the future. And it's like those are tough decisions, especially because we've seen kind of how close guys like Stafford and Cooper Kupp and McVay actually are to each other. So I mean, I could see him doing this, but I don't know. A first round, 3rd overall pick for a 37-year-old quarterback. I mean, like, Matthew Stafford is one of, I don't know, top 10, top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL, give or take, depending on the week. But 3rd overall pick, do you think they would go for that?
Go for the proven talent as opposed to the potential, especially when you're in a situation like Brian Daboll is, as well as Joe Shane is, as we've been talking about over the past couple episodes. Look, both of those guys, they need to win, and they need to win early in order to keep their jobs, and they need to be able to make it to the playoffs at the very least in order to keep their jobs. And from the standpoint of going for a 3rd round pick or a 3rd overall pick in the 1st round, yes, there should be a lot of hype. There should be a lot of juice behind that. But when you're in a situation like Joe Shane is right now with the roster he is right now, he's got weapons at receiver in Neighbors. Like, he needs a quarterback to get them the ball right now. And Matthew Stafford would be a surefire fit for being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because then you look at what's the alternative. It's with that 3rd pick, you take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whoever's there. I mean, Tennessee's going first, and a lot of people are talking about how, okay, maybe they take Cam Ward. So Shedeur, maybe. And not to say that he couldn't have a successful rookie season, but no matter how good he is, like, is he going to be Jaden Daniels? Is he going to lead a team immediately to winning? Maybe he is, but we've already seen Matt Stafford do this and have this success. So it is a little bit of a safer bet. I think kind of a win now type situation. And dude, after the shame that franchise has dealt with because of their poor decision making and their terrible general manager moves, I would be a fan of this. And it's so interesting though, dude, because there's also rumors talking about how maybe Aaron Rodgers might pop over to LA and be with the Rams if this happens. And it's just like, just swap and coast, 2 of the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL. And there we have it right here, because the Jets, this is hilarious. Jets posted the tweet of Aaron Rodgers that said, "Thank you for everything you've given us the past 2 years. Thank you, 8." And then somebody quote tweeted, "Normalize not thanking players who did nothing for your franchise." Is that fair, Scott? Is that fair to Aaron Rodgers right there? He did nothing for the franchise?
Oh, man. I think there's so much truth in it. That's why it's so funny, is there is truth in this. It's like he did. What's crazy is he just like re-exposed what we all knew the Jets organization to be, which is a debacle. So like having as good of a player as Aaron Rodgers in the building still couldn't right the ship of the Jets, which is nuts to say because of all the weapons they have.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, he did rupture his Achilles for the franchise. I mean, that didn't correlate to like actual production on the football field, but then he fought back from that and came back this year. And I know he started off pretty slowly and they fired their head coach, but in the back half of the season, he actually, he was a top half of the league quarterback. And people are kind of overlooking that.
Yeah, it's a classic New York Jets fans being mad that their quarterback isn't the one who's putting the team on his back and getting them W's, or at least getting to the point like a Joe Burrow, right? So like it's hard to play like a Joe Burrow week in and week out, but Aaron Rodgers did not turn the ball over definitely in the second half of the year. He put numbers up that are numbers that should get your team in positions to win, and there just was a lack of execution, I think, across the board. And I don't think it necessarily falls all on Aaron's shoulders. And it was such a weird entry point and journey for him with rupturing your Achilles, as you said. But at the very least, he gave the Jets and probably the NFL one of the coolest moments on September 11th. What was it in 2023 with that run out? Like, dude, that's such an iconic image and will live in not in infamy, live famously
in glory
through the years. Yeah. And
dude,
I'm a big Rodgers fan. He's gonna land on his feet anywhere he goes, and he's gonna ball out. Like, I don't think his career is done. I think he's still got at least a good 2 years left in the tank to make something happen in the league.
Dude, we saw that with the back half of this season. That's why I do like these rumors to him to the Rams, because like, okay, the Jets have proven themselves to be a little bit of an unstable franchise with big old Woody making some impulsive decisions. But the Los Angeles Rams, man, they have one of the best ownership groups. Like their owners have done a great job, and now they've got Sean McVay there, who's a lot of stability. I could see, if this comes out to be true, them having some success for a year or two with the Rodgers McVay meetup. I would be really excited if that happened.
The offensive firepower that those two minds could create would be lethal. It all comes down to what's on the other side of the ball, and if the defense can keep it together, or at least not lose games for them, because I think they'd be able to score points big time. Granted, I think we've all seen Aaron Rodgers do really well with some even aged wide receivers. So them losing Cooper or considering moving off of Cooper would be a blow to that offensive firepower. But the fact that they still have Puka there,
that's true.
Scary tandem. I don't want us to forget him fulfilling the prophecy. If he goes to the Vikings, I think that would be probably the scariest dynamic, because you got O'Connell, who's always kind of left out of the conversation in terms of his offensive prowess because he's up there in the north. So him teaming up there with Aaron Rodgers would be, I think, even scarier.
The North remembers. Yeah, dude, O'Connell deserves. He should be in that same conversation. I'm so curious what happens with the quarterback carousel. It's like, also, okay, where does Sam Darnold go? Does he go to the Raiders maybe for a year now with Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll down there? Interesting. I don't know. Also, apparently, dude, Pittsburgh Steelers inquired about Trevor Lawrence, and we didn't. I don't think we have a graphic up about that, but that's interesting. So we're going to see what's going on with the quarterback carousel, and we're going to continue to talk about it, because that's one of my favorite gossip columns in the NFL. But speaking of aging superstars who are maybe past their prime, the Chiefs, as we were just talking about them, and Travis Kelce, apparently they have given Travis Kelce till March 14th to determine whether or not he wants to retire. We have written in here, like, this is kind of a strange thing for a team to announce. Like, wouldn't you just deal with this internally? Like, I know Travis Kelce has talked about this on his podcast, and hey, like, I don't know yet. I'm trying to decide. And what is he? He's 35, 36. Did not look good really in the Super Bowl. You could tell he has aged, and this is not to take away anything that he has done on the football field. One of the best tight ends of all time in multiple Super Bowls. In my opinion, I do hope that he retires, just because it's a little bit more of a graceful departure than putting the Chiefs in a weird situation. Because, I mean, what is it? He's one of the highest paid tight ends in the NFL. And I know in certain situations, he still is very clutch, but man, they've got a young tight end there. I can't remember his name. And it's just like, is the bang for the buck worth it anymore with him? And if he's trying to hang around there and putting the Chiefs in a strange situation, like, where, okay, do we cut him? What do we do here? I don't like that, man.
Yeah, he's definitely in the latter years of his career, but at the same time, if you talk about his personal life and everything like that, it seems like a weird time for him to hop off, right? he's got everything going on with Taylor Swift and all that. And you'd think like they just started dating, he would want to show her what he's about, right? Like what he wants to do. So I get a sense that he still wants to play deep down. There may be a lot of other people, business people that have entered into his life ever since that relationship happened or marketing people that may be saying like, hey, to your point, this is probably the right path. And then you could do so many other things with the media career that you have going with New Heights and with your brother and so on and so forth. Like, look at what Pat McAfee did with his career. Granted, he built it up vastly differently, so I don't think it's apples to apples. But at the same time, you probably got a lot of people saying, hey, there are a lot of opportunities outside of football here. My hope, just like, even if you don't like him, he's clearly a high level competitor. And that's what I love just about football and sports in general is just competitors competing. So I would like to see him in the same fashion that Aaron Rodgers would have another year or two in the tank or 2 or 3 years in the tank. I would like to see Kelce come back and try and right the wrong. Like if they were to come back and win the Super Bowl next year, I think that would be the way to go out. Not on a deflating, oh, okay, we almost got the three-peat. Now it's my time.
True. Actually, there is something to that, and not to equate Super Bowls with German Bowls, but we had a situation. It's just as cool. But we had a situation. We won back-to-back German Bowls, and we were going for the three-peat. And if we won that, I probably would have retired from football. And we lost. And then we all decided, okay, let's come back for one more year. And we did that. We worked together and we ended up winning the German Bowl that year. And then I retired after that and went out after that and kind of got to go out on top, which is a great feeling. So you're right. I shouldn't be so harsh on him. Part of me also doesn't like athletes to overstay their welcome, man. I do. Yeah. There's something that I really appreciate about the legacy of somebody who goes out on top.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there, but the fact that he has had a relatively healthy career for all intents and purposes. I mean, you look at the greatness of Gronk and everything that he brought to the table, and you got to wonder, dang, if he had a healthy career and didn't get as injured as much as he did, like, dude, he was literally a cyborg by the end of his career with how many Don Joys he had on his body, like unbelievable. So like, I would say just due to the healthiness of his career to this point, give it one more shot, man. Give it one more shot. Go for that 3 and 4 years. That's insane to even think about. That's still in the conversation of Patriots dominance and GOAT status and everything like that. So I just want to see him compete and try and get that next year. Cause it's also great football to watch, man.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I mean, they just got to work on their motivational speeches when they're down. That needs something. That needs some tuning up in the offseason, dude. All right, so he's got until what was it, March 14th?
March 14th.
Make the decision of his life, dude. We got to talk about this because we issued our official apology to Eagles and Eagles fans.
We are apologizing a lot on this show.
Well, we like to say sorry. If you mess up, you say sorry. And so we did issue an apology to Eagles fans. And we didn't say anything bad about the Eagles. We were just like, I don't really know. What's the deal with Sirianni? Is he really even a good coach? How is he going to win a Super Bowl? Will you throw this up? Because this clip came out from the Super Bowl. It is pretty dope. It's him urging Kellen Moore to go for the deep shots, basically saying, okay, if we hit this, it's over. Let's play it here.
When we score, it's over. Yeah, I don't just call it.
Back, looking. He is going deep, and it is caught.
Touchdown! I think that's pretty badass right there. I respect that. That's kind of dope. It's still, I still can't really put my finger on him though, dude. It's like, that was kind of a ballsy, cool move there or call there that also part of him is like a teenage boy to me. I don't know, man. What is your take on this?
He's a player's coach. You could definitely tell that. The question was always, even from the Johns, the Philly fans out there, is like, what does he do? He doesn't call plays. He doesn't call the defense. He doesn't do anything like that. So like, what does he do? What do you do here?
What would you say you do here?
Yeah. But no, I mean, clearly this guy connects with the players, connects with the coaching staff and leads them in that connection. And I hate to say this because I like the dude and I think he's a great defensive coordinator, but not approaching the job like it's a job and approaching it like he's one of the guys, one of the team, in the way that, like, say, Robert Saleh may have missed, and when he got really buttoned up and he seemed to drop that demeanor, and that made him so beloved on the defensive side of the field. So, like, Sirianni brings that to a T, maybe to a fault at times. Yeah, when he starts chirping at his own fans or chirping at people and screaming in the tunnels.
Dude, I think that's actually a really good point. Is he has basically remained authentic and true to himself and his character, even being the head coach. When we have seen other coaches kind of turn their back on what made them special. Maybe not turn their back, but just didn't lean into what made them special and felt like they had to behave a certain way because, now I'm the head coach and I'm the boss. And it's like Sirianni, yeah, he's the boss, but also he acts like just one of the guys, one of the bros. And he's just, there is something endearing about that. And it obviously works, dude. And then also we touched on it a few weeks ago, or maybe later, like in the playoffs, because they didn't start off great, right? And then this ESPN article came out about how the offensive linemen of the Eagles on their bye week came into Sirianni's office, met with him and said, hey, we are not following our true identity here. We're throwing the ball too much. We're not running. We have the best O-line in the league. We have the best running back in the league. And Sirianni really listened to that and took that to heart. And then after the bye week, dude, they totally changed their offensive mindset. They asked Jalen Hurts to throw like 8 to 10 times less per game after that. They started running the ball more. And this is really when they started to take off with their dominance. And that's impressive when a head coach can be receptive to feedback like that and not be like, hey, you coming in here and trying to tell me how to coach this team?
Yeah.
But to listen to his players, which is apparently what went down, if we're to believe this article, that's impressive.
Yeah, there's an element of humility and servant leadership in that approach, and he's listening to his guys and listening to the people who are out there executing and trying to execute the game plan. You know, the fact that he was able to absorb that and take the road that he did clearly, and probably had a discussion with Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore probably has his own philosophy and definitely does have his own philosophy in terms of scoring points and everything. As Mike McCarthy said, he just loves to run up numbers. But, you know, like, honestly, just it speaks to even Kellen being able to recognize the situation and the relationship that Sirianni has with the players, and Kellen having that relationship with the players as well, to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to listen to you guys. You're the ones in the trenches. You're the highest paid offensive line and the best offensive line in the league. Let's go ahead and utilize you as much as we possibly can. And we hear you on this. So, like, I think that's a great leadership approach. And it's vastly different than the Hugh Jackson approach of the Browns, you know, infamously in the Hard Knocks, where it was just like my way or the highway. Like, I'm not listening to any of my coaches either. Like, I'm in this chair.
Dude, yeah, that just being a my way or the highway type guy doesn't fly for me. It doesn't work for me. Speaking of Kellen Moore, though, dude, I mean, obviously now he's gone. Congrats to him, head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And I just want to touch on this for a second. We don't have to beat a dead horse here, but we do like to, on this show, check out the initial vibe of new head coaches when they go to their new organizations. We did it with Ben Johnson. We really analyzed his first moments there, how he responded, how he reacted. We throw this up of Kellen Moore, Scott. And I don't think he speaks in this clip here, but this is kind of his first arrival to the New Orleans Saints. Let's see how we feel about his presence and his vibe.
Let's watch his body language.
That's body language. Dude, I don't love it. Okay. I do not love it. And we do usually, Mikey is usually really critical here about the guy's body language and stuff. It doesn't scream confidence to me. I don't what is your take on his body language and entrance?
I'll be a little more generous. This looks like the guy was surprised, like a surprise birthday party to him. He didn't know what he was walking into. He didn't know that it was a full cafeteria of friends and family or organizational people that are about to give him a standing O. He was just like, yo, okay, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my face? That's what was coming through. You see it all in his eyes right here. He's just like, what the?
Okay. All right. You know, that's fair. That is fair. He did look quite surprised. He's a young guy. And hey, that's not to say that young coaches who are offensive gurus can't come in and be superstar head coaches. Look at Sean McVay. But I will say I worry, dude. I will say I worry. Not as much as I worry about Liam Cohen at the Jaguars, because that has been an F minus, dude, in terms of aura and body language on new head coaches. But we'll see how Kellen Moore does. Am I being too hard? Am I being too hard on these guys?
No. Body language says a lot, but that's something you can always fix. You can always fix your body language. But it's when you start talking, that's when you really start putting rubber to the road and people can really judge. And Duval was nail in the coffin, I think.
Man will never ever leave my mind. Even if he wins 5 Super Bowls in a row, I'll be like, Duval. All right. Hey, well, he might be losing his quarterback. I'm curious about that.
Ooh.
Let's take a look, dude, because we're getting into draft season now. Speaking of quarterbacks and guys who might be coming into the NFL, let's take a look. We got this mock draft right here. Let's just take a look at this and then get into it. I want to just talk about a couple prospects and thoughts on it. For those just listening, it's just a mock draft from the NFL from Chad Reuters. He's got Cam Ward going 1 to Tennessee, Travis Hunter to the Browns at 2, Shedeur to New York Giants at 3, Abdul Carter going 4th to the Patriots, and Will Johnson going 5th to the Jaguars. What do you think of this mock draft right here, Scott? And kind of where do you stand on some of these?
Well, as a Browns fan, I don't want to necessarily be too hyped. I think Travis Hunter is an incredible player. Obviously, it doesn't matter what I think. He won the Heisman and everything like that. He plays both sides of the ball, and so he's incredibly dynamic. You can use him literally in all 3 phases of the game if you want. And just getting him immersed in NFL football, I think that's a huge boon. But ultimately, I think one of the things that really stands out is Abdul Carter. And I think he showed his true colors and how dominant he is, especially in the Big Ten play and then into the college football playoff. I wish, as a Browns fan, that we would consider him as well, especially if he's available. So, I mean, embarrassment of riches there if we got Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter to choose from, but that also means that we've sucked. That's why we're at the second place.
Why is it? It feels like it's always the same teams drafting up top right here. And I'm sorry that you guys are one of those teams. I would love to see the Browns go after Abdul Carter, dude, because especially losing Myles Garrett, asking for the trade. Abdul Carter, incredibly dominant. I mean, like super impressive. He was playing off the ball a year ago, like actual off-ball linebacker. Then they moved him onto the line of scrimmage and just incredibly dominant. He's kind of Micah Parsons-esque in that way, because Micah Parsons did a similar thing. And it's funny, they also wore the same number at the same school, Penn State. So it's like a lot of similarities there. So I could see him. Do you think that Travis Hunter is actually going to play substantial snaps both ways in the NFL?
No, because I think it broke this morning or late last night that he was entering into the combine as a cornerback, not as a wide receiver. That doesn't mean that he won't be utilized, because we've seen, I mean, definitely in the college ranks, him being utilized on both sides. You can minimize the amount of times he goes on the offensive side of the ball for sure, but still have him be very effective, especially if you have the right play caller and packages for him. So I think he'll be utilized on both sides, but to a massively less degree than he was this past year. I think where he'll really make a difference is in the special teams. I'll stick with the Browns here. And yes, going for the flashiness of, say, a Travis Hunter is something I have a little aversion to, because we've done that so frequently and been bitten in the ass for it. Abdul Carter would be something I'd be interested in, but I'm also interested in Will Campbell down at LSU, and just looking at the way in which the Lions rebuilt and came from the absolute bottom of the barrel, getting Penei Sewell and shoring up the offensive line, making sure that they're investing in the protective up front of anybody, regardless of who's behind center. Like, just investing in that will ultimately it'll pay such dividends in the future. So like, there's part of me that wants us to start thinking in that regard, as opposed to thinking like, oh, we've got it all figured out, because the Browns, we do need help up front as well. So if we're going to protect somebody like Deshaun or whoever's back there, we need some bodies up front.
Yeah, dude. I mean, when you're saying, looking at Will Campbell, I mean, look at also what the Chargers did last year. It's like, Jim Harbaugh comes in. It's like, we're drafting a lineman. We got Joe Alt. obviously he wasn't the reason that they made the playoffs, but he was a very strong contributor from the beginning. And just, I mean, the argument that Mikey made the other day, excuse me, or on the show the other week was like, your skill players don't matter at all. All that matters is your offensive line, because skill players are a dime a dozen, and you can put anybody back there if you have a good offensive line. And obviously, this is actually kind of an argument that detractors of Jalen Hurts say, is that he just had such a good offensive line. And, there's 20 quarterbacks in the NFL that could have performed the way he did this season. I don't believe that. But that's the argument there. So can never go wrong. And well, okay, dude, we're looking here at this, and Shedeur Sanders is number 3 to the New York Giants, which is one of the teams that he has kind of hinted that he'd like to go to. He sort of hinted on social media and on podcasts he'd be interested in going to New York, or he'd be interested in going to the Raiders of Las Vegas. There are rumors floating around he would not want to go to Tennessee because of kind of their history of how they've used and developed the quarterback position. But Scott, I want to ask you, I'm ravenously curious for your opinion. Shedeur Sanders, who is one of the top prospects in this year's draft, possibly even the number 1 pick, depending on how things shake out, and maybe there's a trade up there for New York, what have you, has released a song and music video, I think yesterday, and it was floating around. Really high production value music video as well, flashy rap song. And I don't know if we want to play it on here, but I need to get your thoughts on quarterbacks releasing music as well as being quarterbacks.
Let's listen to about 5 seconds.
Yeah, there's too much going on, girl, just do me a favor.
And scene.
And scene. And for those just listening, the music video is actually very high production value. Like this is a professional song and music video.
Yeah.
Scott, where do you stand on this? How do you feel about this?
I understand if anybody's going to do this and can do it well, it's going to be Shedeur, the son of Dion, because talk about being able to promote yourself and your brand to the highest degree. Like, clearly he's learned from the best. And, I love the confidence that Shedeur has in all things, especially in the competitive mode. Like, I think he's actually an incredibly tough player. How many times he got sacked and was able to get up and still ball out and do everything he did. I think I really like him as a player. What concerns me here is the fact that he has yet to play a single snap in the NFL. And it feels like doing something like this while building your brand and everything like that, I feel like this is more of a detraction, because you're still Shedeur Sanders. You're still like the dude. Everybody knows you, right? But this feels like you're not keeping the main thing. Like going and doing this and building out this side hustle or whatever this one-off is. It's just, you're in the throes or in the middle of prepping for your first NFL season. I would like it to be like a lock-in. We don't hear anything about you until draft day. And then all of a sudden things catch fire. So I find this to be like, dude, just keep the main thing.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you on that. And there's some good points in there. And, I could argue the same thing. Say, okay, this is sort of a distraction, what have you. And it's not great timing, I would say. It's not great timing right as we're heading into combine and draft season, because it could be interpreted as a distraction. And I think a lot of the way that we would interpret this or respond to this depends on how he performs on the football field. Now, I know he has not played in the NFL yet, and we don't know how he will perform in the NFL, but he has performed very, very well on the college scene, and throughout his college football career been very media heavy. Like, he has a podcast, he's very in the spotlight, and it has not detracted from his performance on the college football field. So in that sense, I'm actually okay with it, and with him kind of expanding and having this whole other side to him. I'm in favor. Like, when we talked to Luke a few months ago about athletes having something outside of football, I am fine with athletes having other, and I don't know if you're going to call this a hobby. Is this another career endeavor? Maybe you can interpret it that way, but it is he's getting into music. I mean, it's just another thing. It's sort of, I don't want to call him a renaissance man, but moving towards that where you have multiple interests. Now, it doesn't mean that the main thing is not the main thing. And just because the thing that he does outside of football has such a spotlight on it, like some other athletes have different hobbies outside of football that we don't see, but maybe they spend the same amount of time on it as he did in this song and music video. So in that sense, I actually think there's an argument that it's okay, and I'm fine with it. But I think in the long run, my concrete opinion will depend on how he performs as a rookie.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. The way I see this, yeah, this could be a hobby, but I think it gets down to the same sort of argument between, you know, how like Mr. Beast or there are a lot of those YouTube videos out there where it's people giving other people like just a bag of money for something. And it's just like, oh, this is just charity. This is just charity. But it's also like, well, there's a little bit of cringeworthiness to this at the same time because you're choosing to film this act that you're doing and you're the one who's getting all of the praise for being such a nice guy and giving this person this money and everything. So it's like, what is the true motivation here? That's why I say keep the main thing. And you can obviously have those hobbies and those interests outside of football. I just think like this might be ill-timed, right? Because he's still on top of the world. He's going to be talked about for the next couple months until the draft happens. And even then he's going to be talked about leading up to the season because he is this year's Caleb Williams for all intents and purposes. Granted, I think he's a better player than Caleb, and that might be controversial, but I think he'll have a better career. I just think, look, you're Shedeur Sanders, man. Like you got a long runway to be able to do this and unleash this. And if you start balling out and then you do this, like if Jaden Daniels were to do this, this would have been popping off like right now. But it's like prove yourself first in the league.
Jaden Daniels would not do this because he's not even allowed to talk to girls, dude. He's locked in. And that's why he had the greatest rookie season of all time. So there's an argument to be made there. You are right on that sense. And I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm not going to fully bash on this right now. I'm going to kind of wait and see if this kind of stuff becomes a distraction. The other argument is, hey, strike while the iron's hot. Everyone's talking about him right now. He had a really, really hot final season of college football. He's going into the draft. A lot of people talking about him. What if he falls into obscurity and becomes a Will Levis? Well, I'm not going to do a Will Levis rap song. His time has passed, dude. So that's the argument for Shedeur Sanders dropping the rap song.
Well, if he ever falls into that pit, all he has to do is just eat a tub of mayonnaise on video or dip his bananas into mayonnaise and stuff like that, and then he'll be back on top. But look, that's why I'm saying he's Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that there's such a short fuse to that iron being hot, right? He can strike it in 3, 4, 5 months from now and still have the same sort of impact because he is Shedeur Sanders.
Is there an argument to be made that once he actually is on a team in the NFL, then it would be more of a distraction rather than just releasing it right now before he's even on a team?
Sure. So you can push that 5, 6, 7 months or whatever that timeline I said right there until after season 1. Because if he has a season like a CJ Stroud did 2 years ago, or Jaden Daniels did this previous year, and then he's the third one to do this, and then he comes out with that, dude, vastly different conversation. Like, yo, you're a baller. You obviously are and have been through the college ranks, but let's make sure we concretize that in the NFL before we start doing this.
True. Although after CJ Stroud's rookie year, he started going on podcasts and talking a little bit wild, and he was reveling in the spotlight a little bit too much, and then took a
sophomore slump.
Sophomore slump. It's natural. Everyone deals with it. Well, he'll be at the combine. Can you throw this up, Scott, here? This thing that's green highlighted. It's because we're talking about the combine and everything. They released the all of the invites to the combine. And this is a graphic. It's 329 players that have been invited to the NFL combine. And we've got a graphic up for those just listening of number of invites by school. It's kind of interesting. And we've got with the most Ohio State, national champion. They had 15. Georgia and Texas both have 14. Oregon, yuck. And then South Carolina and Ole Miss with 11. Miami with 10. And we got our eye there on Notre Dame. Solid, dude. They're in the kind of the tier 2, but 8 players invited from Notre Dame. Anything jump out at you from this graphic?
Ultimately, I'm looking down in the bottom right corner. Where's Yale and Georgetown?
Is it Georgetown? Is there another page? Well, dude, Yale actually, you guys, I don't know if you get guys invited to the combine, but you guys get guys in the NFL.
Oh yeah, drafted and everything. Yeah, the combine might be a different conversation.
That's a stretch. Hey, we got Oregon State in there. Go Beavs. We got Oregon State.
Oregon State. I think going back to like what stands out here, it's just Big Ten presence here is wild.
Where's Florida State? Oh, they're there. They
yeah.
got 3. Dude, remember how hyped up they were before the season? Just 3. It's just like, man, dude. I want while we're talking about all of this, I wanted to just bring up this. Well, you can throw it up here if you just this article that Patrick Mahomes wrote. We don't have to read it all of it, but basically it's an article that Mahomes had written or an open letter to the NFL, published it to basically plead his case of, hey, I know I'm not a perfect prospect, I'm not a perfect quarterback, but I'm going to be great for your team, whoever picks me, whoever wants to take a risk on me, because he had a lot of question marks and kind of untraditional techniques coming out of college, and there were questions there. So there's that. And then also, Scott, if you'll throw up this of the Bills fans who are reacting to Josh Allen getting drafted when he got drafted. Here, let's play this real quick.
My God, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Have traded the 7th pick to the Buffalo Bills. With the 7th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen.
Dude, we're looking at arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL just a few years ago, or whatever it was, 7 years ago, kind of pleading their case to be drafted high, and also fans being devastated by their team drafting you. And then a few short years later, these guys prove themselves as just legends in the sport, or the top of the league. And it kind of just goes to show how imperfect the draft process is, dude, because there's so much uncertainty around guys who end up concretely becoming so great. And then we also have guys who people are concretely saying, hey, this guy is bust proof, and going on and having a lackluster career. What are your thoughts on that, man?
I love seeing these stories though, right? And like even guys who are now at the pinnacle, winning MVPs, winning Super Bowls back to back, and so on and so forth. They realize that this isn't a given for them. And that's honestly why I think these guys are where they're at today in the NFL, is because they seemingly had to fight from behind at all times and fight for every bit of success that they've earned. They've had to fight for it. And like, I think this is actually quite endearing and really cool to see, because not everybody starts at the pinnacle. It's like we were just talking about Shedeur, right? He's seemingly at a pinnacle because he has media hype behind him, because he has the name and Sanders and everything like that. These dudes didn't. Like, they were, for all intents and purposes, unknowns outside of just like Mel Kiper.
Yeah, dude. Also, like, this kind of makes me think, or gives me a bit even more confidence with a guy like Cam Ward, because I believe he was no star recruit. Like, he was not on Rivals coming out of high school. I think Josh Allen was kind of similar. Maybe he was a 2-star, which is like, that basically means you can play Division I, but you're whatever, kind of throwaway ranking. I don't know what Mahomes was coming out of there, but he wasn't looked at as this generational talent coming out of college. So I do think that there's something there that, like, some of these guys who have to not scratch and claw, but fight through adversity and continue to prove themselves and maybe have a chip on their shoulder. It's interesting though, dude. We see success in the drafts sometimes from look at like Pete Carroll when he was at USC, and then the following year he goes to the NFL and is with the Seattle Seahawks. And for those next few years, they had really, really successful drafts. Similar thing. I know it's only 1 year so far, but Harbaugh coming from Michigan and then going to the Chargers, they had a pretty solid draft as well. Sometimes, or you could argue that these coaches who come directly from college and jump right into the NFL, they know the talent in the draft a bit better, because they've been playing against these guys the last couple of years. They've been watching film, not just after the season, but throughout the entire season. So they have a little bit more of a sense of those college players coming out. Do you think there is credibility to that?
I think those coaches do have a little more information and a little more color on who could potentially be a guy in the league. But it all goes back to that imprecision. You really don't know at each level, right? You could be an absolute baller in high school and then get to the next level in college at D1 and all of a sudden fizzle out, because there are so many other factors that come into life. The mental fortitude, the ability to fight through that adversity, the ability to like manage and compartmentalize your life outside of ball as responsibilities come through the pipe or down the pipe. So there are a lot of elements to this that that lend toward this being an imprecise science. So like generally, I would say that's true that the college coaches have a better grasp on that. But honestly, when you get to that level in life, uh, grown men going in as like this is your profession, your business, your operation. You never really know how people are going to respond. The hope is that they're hardened dudes to this point because they've been through the ringer of college football. But you can't always tell because it's a different level. It's a different level of competition, and how are they hold up mentally in the wake of that.
Yeah, dude, I think the mental aspect is so huge. And obviously the NFL does a bunch of due diligence, interviews with the guys, and tries to find out everything they can about these guys. But it's like when you're hopping from one level to the next, that mentality and the psychological aspect cannot be overstated. And say, I looked back at the 5-star recruits over the last maybe 20, like looking back to like when we were in high school, maybe a little bit before that. And a lot of these 5-star recruits coming out of high school, top of the class, rivals.com.
Yeah.
There's so many of them, dude. I'd never even heard of them. They never made anything huge of themselves at the
Right.
top level of football. And that's not to say they didn't have success in some other area of their life, but they didn't live up to that potential or that hype of being a 5-star high school recruit and then being, NFL MVP. I know this has happened, but there's a lot of them that just don't pan out that way.
Yeah.
And the huge part of that is probably the mental aspect.
And I don't think a lot of casual fans understand the mental battle that goes on at that level of competition. I mean, you're even talking about the level of high school competition. While that's not apples to apples whatsoever with the NFL, that's where it starts. That's where it all starts. And then as you go up the ladder, it only intensifies and amplifies to degrees that casual fans just can't understand unless they experienced a certain level of that beyond high school. So yeah, getting into the NFL, it is such a kill or be killed meritocracy. If you're not on your game at any point, I mean, dude, even Peyton Manning got cut. That is stupid to say.
Yeah. Even Peyton Manning, who ended up being one of the best of all time. It's like, what have you done for me lately, dude? The NFL. It's wild, but that's why it's awesome. Last thing, let's hit on this, Scott, just because a little bit of good news for Notre Dame, because we were talking about GMs and scouting players, what have you. Will you throw this up, or that Notre Dame is making moves?
Hey.
Notre Dame is finalizing a deal to acquire Detroit Lions director of scouting and advancement, Mike Martin, to become its next general manager. He's leaving after 4 years on Detroit's staff, during which time he helped rebuild the Lions roster into Super Bowl contenders. Notre Dame will soon be adopting an NFL model under the leadership of Martin and Freeman. Dude, that is awesome, because the Detroit Lions were the perfect illustration of building a roster and kind of turning around a roster. Not that Notre Dame needs to turn around a roster or rebuild anything, but just to continue to build on the success that they have had under Coach Freeman these last 2 years, last year especially. Martin coming there, I like that a lot. What do you think?
I think this is a great hire. I think you're right. And grabbing somebody from a culture that did it at the highest level and revamped it and was able to find the right people. I'm not going to say that all of that success was due to Martin, but clearly he had a huge role to play in that resurgence of the Detroit Lions. And anybody who's done it, especially again at the highest level, more than welcome on the Irish sideline or in the offices to like help continue the success that was had this year, and then pushing it to the next level, so that when we do face Ohio State once again, it's not going to be a somewhat lopsided first half, and that there's a different level of competition on the field, and it just continues to improve. So I'm all for this hire, man. I'm all for this hire. And also to the guy whom I won't mention his name, who hopped and turncoat went to USC for more money. This couldn't be a better hire and backfill, in my opinion.
He who must not be named. Okay, so Notre Dame back in the national championship next year?
Definitely to look, I still haven't turned into an optimistic fan, right? I always approach these things with a level of skepticism because I've been burned so many times in my life. I will say we will make at least the Final Four.
It's going to be Notre Dame and North Carolina for football check. Okay, it's going to be wild year college football next year, dude. I like that, and it is great to get somebody from the culture of the Lions. There we go, dude. Without Mikey, we did an hour. That's good. without Mikey interjecting and making fun of our takes. Our
Or
takes
just-
were so good today. Mikey
Yeah.
couldn't even argue against them.
He had no arguments, no smirks, no blank stares, no falling asleep with his eyes open.
We just bore Mikey to death. All right, there we go. All right, everybody, thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Peace.